Assalamualaikum and a very good day. So, kita on chapter 4. Our chapter 4 will be on project scheduling. Okay, so kita akan tengok on the network techniques. So, on chapter 3, we look into the planning kan. So, now if you have a look here, we have planning that we are done already. Hold on, taking my pen. So we've done our planning. Now we look into scheduling. And all these three is interdependent. They are depending on each other. Okay. So when we talk about scheduling, we actually talk about the time frame. Okay. The time, the limit, the start, the end, and how much time that we need for our project to be completed. So, this has to be done actually during the planning, the scheduling. Okay, that's why we have here the interdependent of scheduling, budgeting, and also planning. Okay, so we need to look into this factor during the planning part. So, while doing the proposal, we also look into the scheduling. How many time we want to allocate for each of the tasks in our project. Okay. So, many project managers relies on these schedules for them to set a specific time frame ataupun duration for any of the parameters in the project. Okay. So, why project schedules are important? Okay, so this is very important in order for all the managers that handling the project, not only project managers, but other managers or assistant project managers, for them to deliver the project on time. Okay, the specific task or the sub-task on time. Okay, so why? Because normally time is the most least flexible. Okay, the least flexible in the characteristic of project management. Okay. So, times are very critical. Okay. Whether you do the project or you do not do the project, time passes. Okay. So, that is why abiding ataupun following the schedule and the timelines are very important to minimize the conflict in the project. Okay. So, how do you prepare project schedule? So, there's two tools that we look into. Okay, the two tools yang kita akan tengok here in our project schedules. This is the theory part of it lah. We will look into the PERT or CPM network, and also we look into the Gantt chart. So you have two tools in preparing your schedule. Okay. So what is PERT and CPM? PERT is project evaluation and review technique. CPM is critical path method. So, this is an analytical and visual techniques in order for you to prepare your project scheduling. Okay. So, this is very valuable for project manager to lay down their schedules. Okay. So, we'll look into detail apakah itu PERT and also CPM. That it involve calculation nanti. Okay. So, the difference between PERT and CPM networks adalah PERT and CPM are very similar. Tapi dia two different methods. But normally kita akan combine nanti. Okay, in PERT is project evaluation and review technique. Project evaluation and review technique, there are three estimates used to form weighted average of the expected completion time based on probability distribution of completion, and therefore is actually a probabilistic tools. Whereas CPM pula, dia ada only one estimate sahaja of the duration. Kalau PERT ni, dia 3 estimate, okay, on the completion time. Okay, so, based on this, we can say that CPM is more deterministic tools. Dia more accurate lah, more near ataupun similar to the real timeline. Okay. So, kalau PERT is basically a tool for planning and control of the time with no ability of cost estimation. CPM pula is used to control the time and at the same time allows an implicit estimate of the project cost. So basically, in scheduling, kita tak tengok CPM lagi, cost lagi. Kita akan concentrate on PERT/CPM. Kenapa? Sebab kita ada critical path. Kita akan determine the critical path but not the cost of the project yet. Okay. So the similarities between the PERT or CPM networks adalah both employee networks. Nanti kita tengok network tu apa Okay. And then both identify the critical path and then also the slack or float. We'll look into detail apa itu networks, apa itu critical path, apa itu slack or float in the PERT and CPM networks. Okay. So this PERT and CPM network also known as scheduling network analysis. Okay, scheduling network analysis. So PERT and CPM, both of them follow the 6 step. Firstly, you have to define the project and prepare the work breakdown structure. Okay, once you dah define the project, prepare work breakdown structure, you have to develop relationship among the activities. Okay, you have to decide which activity come first, which activity comes second, or which activity come A. Let's say I give A, B, C, D, E, F, G lah. Okay, let's say I give A task, B task, C task, D task, E task. Okay, for example. So, let's say A and B doesn't need preceding activities. Means that they can start at the same time. They don't need a preceding activities. And let's say C, this is how we determine the relationship between the activities or tasks. Let's say C can only be done when B is finished. And D can only be done when A and B is finished. And also E can only be done when C and D is finished. So we can say that A and B doesn't have precedent. Okay, doesn't have anything that have to come before them. They can start together. But we can only do C when B is finished done. When B is done. Okay. And then D can only be done when A and B is finished. Can only be started when A and B is finished being done. Okay. So these are what we call a precedent. A, B to D, B to C is a precedent to C, C and D is a precedent to E. Okay. Then, when we determine this characteristic, we can start to draw the network connecting all the activities. This one I will show you later because it needs a bit of explanation. Okay. After that, we can assign the time needed. Okay, we don't see the cost estimate yet because we are doing only PERT here, not the CPM yet. Okay, we are only doing the scheduling. Later in chapter 5, we'll look into budgeting. Then we can assign the cost estimation. Okay, so we assign time for each of the activities. After that, we compute the longest time path through, the longest time path to be taken. Okay, so we compute the longest path through the network. Ini ayat dia sekali Sekejap, I kena. Okay, this is the right one. Okay, so then we compute the longest path through the network, and this is called the critical path. Means that is the longest time the project can take. Okay, the longest duration the project can take before a crisis on the project in terms of the scheduling and timeline take place. Okay, before it becomes a crisis, the timeline or schedule will become crisis. Okay, that is what we call a critical path. That is the longest that we can take. After that, we use network to help plan, schedule, monitor and control the project. This is the 6 basic steps in the PERT or CPM network. Okay, so you have to follow through this. So in questions, in a test, maybe you will be given the work structure, you will be given the timeline, or you will be given the task, and also the duration for the task to be handled, and then or to be finished, then you are asked to develop the network, the PERT and CPM network, to determine the critical path, to determine the slack or float. Okay, the slack or the total slack and total float. Okay, but in your proposal, this is the step taken for you to come up with a PERT or CPM network analysis. Okay, the 6th step. Okay, so now we look into the jargons ataupun wording used in PERT or CPM network analysis. We have activities, we have event, and we have also network. Activity is the task ataupun sub-tasks that are required throughout your project that will use resources and also time. Okay. Event is a state resulting from a completion of one or more activities. Okay. Network pula is a diagram of nodes. Okay. Let's say this is one node, this is another node, this is another node. This is how they are related towards each other, for example. Okay. So this is what we call a diagram of nodes connected by arrows that defines the project and also the relationship between the activities. This is what we call network from the start until it's finished, the project. Okay. So this is an example of a project network diagram where they have a nodes, they have a start, they have a finish, they have a nodes, they have a activities. Means that A and B, we can see here, when we start, A and B doesn't need any precedence. They can start immediately. Then we go to C. C needs A. Okay. C needs A. And then we go to D. D needs a precedent of A and B. D needs A and B to finish before it can start the activities in D. Before we can start the activities in D. Whereas in C pula, it only needs A to finish it. Tasks or activities before we can start with C. Okay, this is what we call network diagram, where we have nodes and also arrows. Okay, so in a project network diagram, there is two types of network diagram that we can draw. Okay, we can draw activity on arrows or activity on nodes. Okay, activity on arrows, we put the activities on the arrows and the event that happenings on the node. Nanti kita tengok apa itu activity on arrows. Whereas activity on nodes pula, the activity is being put in nodes. Arrow only show how the relationship between one nodes to another nodes. Itu saja. Arrow is defining one nodes to another nodes. Okay. So this is an example of arrow on nodes. Okay. Activity on nodes. So the task or activity, we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G kan? Okay, we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So we put the task or activity on the nodes. Okay, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, and then finish. Okay, this is what we call dummy finish sebenarnya, sebab once F and G finish, it's actually done. The project is done. We'll see which one is the longest one to take to finish. Okay. Sama juga, ini is the dummy start. We actually start dekat sini 0, A and B. Okay. Okay, it's actually here starting and here finish. We just want it to close the loop sahaja. Okay, this is what we call activities on node. Now, if this is an activities on arrow pula, okay, we put the activities on arrow and the event that's finishing it on the nodes. Okay, so when we finish A, we finish event 1. When we finish the activities B here, we finish event 2. Okay, it's like that. This is what we call activities on, that's right, activities on arrow. Okay, so you can either use activities on notes ataupun activities on arrow. You can determine which one you want. Okay, it's up to you. Okay, it's up to you. So, let us do this exercise. Okay, dia kata, Milwaukee Paper Manufacturing Inc. has long been delaying the expense of installing air pollution control equipment in its facility. The Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, has recently given the manufacturer 16 weeks to install a complex air filter system. The company has been warned that it may be forced to close the facility unless the device is installed in the allocated time. The plant manager wants to make sure that the installation of the filtering system progress smoothly on time. Okay, so dia bagi berapa week? 16 weeks. Okay, so he has identified 8 activities. This is the activities that need to be performed in order for the project to be completed as in table below. So, activity A sampai H sebab ada 8 kan? 2, 4, 6, 8. So, activity A ni apa dia? Build internal components. B. Modify roof and floor. C. Construct collection stack. D. Pour concrete and install frame. E. Build high temperature burner. F. Install pollution control system. G. Install air pollution devices. H. Inspect and test. Final lah ni kan? Okay. So, kalau kita tengok apakah link between one activity to another? A and B doesn't need any predecessors. Tak ada predecessor. So, they can start immediately at initial time. Okay. But C needs A to finish. D needs A and B to finish. E needs C to finish. F needs C to finish. G needs D and E to finish. H needs F and G to finish. Okay, so question asks us to draw arrow on node network diagram and activities on nodes network diagram and activities on arrow network diagram. Okay, so this is the activities on nodes. Okay, the activities on node. When we start, okay, we can start with project A and B. Okay. I just want to, okay, I couldn't do two windows here. Yeah? It's okay. So, this is what given to us. Let me delete here. Okay, let me hide this one first. Okay, let me show you. Okay. Let me show you and we compare later. Okay, so we need activities on nodes. Okay, we need activities on nodes here. Okay, what we need here, diagram. Okay. I need to take off my keyboard so that I can do it nicely. Okay. So what we have here is that we need to start our diagram. Okay. When we start our network diagram, we start with node A, activity, node B. Okay. Because it doesn't need time to, it doesn't have any predecessors. Okay. Precedent. Then we look into C. C need A to finish first. Okay. So C needs A to finish first. Okay. Then D. When we look into D, it needs A and B. Okay. Nodes D. Okay. Nodes D need A and B to finish first before it can start. Then we look into E. Okay. E needs C. So we put E here. Okay. E needs C to finish. F. F also needs C. Okay. So we pull the C here. Okay, F need C. Then we have G. Okay, G need D and E. So what I'm going to do is that I'm gonna erase D, make it a bit lower so that we can pull nanti senang. Okay, make it a bit lower. Okay. So tadi D need A and B to finish kan? Okay. So that you have G here which needs E and D to finish. Okay. Okay. Right, and finally we have H which needs G and also F. Okay, and also F to finish. So we have a network diagram here. It's not that. Let me change E and F here so that it doesn't collide. Okay, so E and F here so that H can have okay, so they didn't intertwine together. So recheck back and then finish lah. Finish. Okay, finish. So recheck back. We have A and B starting the project. Okay, we have A and B without any predecessor. And then we have C which need A to finish. And then we have D which need A and B to finish first. Okay, A and B to finish first. And then we have E which needs C to finish. We have F which needs C to finish. And then we have G which needs E and D. H which needs G and F to finish first. This is arrow on networks. Okay, arrow on networks. Okay, so compare this with our, hold on. Compare this with our the network in the books, yeah. Okay, the arrow on networks in the books. Okay, next we'll do the activity of arrow on networks again. Activities on networks. Now we do the activities on arrows. Okay, we do the activities on arrows. Okay. So when we have the activities on arrows, okay, we start the activity. Okay. We start our arrows A and B. Okay, arrow A and arrow B. Okay, we either can have this one as a start. Okay, then end event number 1, event number 2. Okay, then we have activity C which need activity A to finish first. Okay, so this is, sorry. Okay, if you ask me, I always prefer AON. But, of course, we need to teach you everything, yeah. So, event 3, which is C, which needs A to finish before it can start. Okay, now event D, which need A and B to finish. Now, event D here, we have to remember 4. So this is event D. Okay. It needs event B and also event A to finish. Okay. Then we have E and F. We have 4, 5. E and F. 6. Okay, 5 and 6. C. Then we have event G, which need D and also E. Okay. So okay. So this is G. Okay, this is G. This is G. Okay. This is G, which is 7th event. Okay. And finally, H, which is the final event, needs F and G. Okay, F and G. This is event H. This is event H. This is activity H, and event 8. Okay, so we have 8 events or activities. Okay, A, B, C, D, E. This is not G, eh? This is D, eh? Okay. So we need event. This is what we call, hold on guys. It's a bit hang pula. Okay, so I need to do drawing. Okay. Hold on, I have a problem with my words ni. Okay, now it's okay. Now it's D here, right? So next, this is what we call activities on arrow. Okay, you can either choose to use activity on network or activity on arrows for your proposal. But for exam, if you are asked to do the activity on network, you have to do like this. If you are asked to do activity on arrows, you have to do like this. Okay. Next, in order to find a critical path, you need to know the duration of each of the activities. Okay. So for let's say, each of the activities have a specific times for them to be taken, to be done. Okay. So if we add up the duration, this means we have 47 days. But does this mean that the critical time that we have is 47 days? No, we don't know yet, but we need to do a critical path analysis. Okay, CPA, critical path analysis. It doesn't mean that the total duration of activities to be done here is 47 days. It doesn't mean that. Okay. So, what is critical path? Critical path is the longest time path through the network. Okay, for you to finish the project. That is why 47 is not the critical path. Okay. So, in order for you to find the critical path, kita tengok dia punya jargons yang we need. Okay. In order for us to find the critical path. Okay, kita ada 2 distinct starting and 2 distinct ending times for each of the activity. Setiap activity macam A tadi kan. Okay. Macam A tadi, dia ada 2 starting and 2 ending. Kenapa kita kata dia ada 2 starting? Kita akan estimate the earliest start time, earliest finish time, ES, EF, the latest start time and the latest finish time. Earlier ni paling awal kita boleh start kita punya projek. Okay. Earliest finish time ni paling awal kita boleh habiskan projek kita. Kalau latest start time pula, paling lewat kita boleh start projek kita. Latest finish time ni paling lewat kita boleh finish projek kita. So, normally, ada satu teknik untuk lukis dia. Di sini kita letak earliest start and then earliest finish. Okay, ini kita start, latest start and also latest finish. Okay, one teknik. Nanti saya tunjuk lagi satu teknik. Okay, from here. This is one of the technique. This is one of the technique for you to draw your analysis. Okay, network analysis ataupun notes analysis. Okay, another one is that using this technique. Okay, yang mana you letak activity symbol kat dalam ni, duration kat bawah, earlier start, earlier finish, latest start, latest finish. Okay, kalau guna square macam ni, yang di atas dan bawah, activity name, activity duration, okay, and then earlier start, earlier finish, latest start, latest finish. Okay, the process that you do on top, okay, yang di atas dua ni, we call it forward pass process. Okay, you akan calculate masa dia akan ambil daripada satu point ke satu point. Nanti I akan tunjuk. Okay, kat bawah ni pula untuk latest start, latest finish ini, dia ke arah sini. Okay, we call it backward pass process. Okay, this is forward pass process and backward pass process. Okay, now we look into this activity. Tengok ni, this activity we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Okay, kita ada 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 10 activity, kita ada predecessor and then kita ada duration of each activity. We look into this example. We are using we're using this method yang mana kita ada activity name on the left, activity duration. Kat atas dia kita ada early start, early finish. Kat bawah, latest start, latest finish. Okay, we start. And ini adalah what we call activities on notes. Okay, activities on notes. Bukan activities on arrows. Okay, so we start. We have here, if you look into here, A dengan B tak ada predecessor. So, we can start A dengan B. Kita letak A, tulis B, and then determine the duration. We put the duration 5 and 4. Okay. So, because the start, it doesn't have the predecessor, it starts with 0. Okay. It starts with 0 and plus, ini cara kira dia, 0 plus dengan duration dia. So, you got the early finish. Okay. So, you go from here to here. This is what we call a forward pass. Okay, forward pass. And then here pula, to calculate the earlier finish is the earlier start plus dengan duration. Okay, so that's why you have earlier finish you as 4. Okay, this is what we call forward pass process. Next, C. Okay, C need A to finish first before it can start. So this one, we put it C. Okay, this box C, okay, dia punya predecessor is A. Okay, so because predecessor dia A, it only start at, dia punya earliest start is the 5th day. Okay, masukkan early finish as the early start of the activity C. Okay, and then for you to calculate the early finish is the early start plus the duration, which is 3. Okay, so you got the early finish. The same goes to D and E. Okay, we look into D. Okay, we look into D. It needs A also as the predecessor, and E also needs the A as the predecessor. So because of that, dia punya earlier start is the same. It's the earlier finish of activity A. Okay. Then we plus dengan duration for D, which is 4, you get 9. You plus dengan duration, which is 6. Untuk activity E, you get 11 as the early finish. Okay, so we are doing our forward pass. Now, we've done C and D and E. Now, F. Okay, F need B and C to finish. So, here, our notes F. Okay, F with the duration of 4 days. Okay, F with the duration of 4 days. And we know that it needs B and also C before it can start. So, which one will be the earlier start? Okay, it couldn't be 4 because if it's 4, C is not finished yet. That is why we took the maximum number. Okay, the maximum number of early finish for both of the predecessors. Kita ambil yang mana paling maximum. So, the maximum is 8. This is the earliest activity F can start because 4 cannot be. If it's 4 days, C hasn't started yet. Kan? Sedangkan dia perlukan C to finish before it starts. That is why it is 8. And then to find the early finish for this activity F, you add with the duration. That's why you got 12 days, which is the early finish. Okay. Now we look into G and H. G need D to finish. G only need D to finish. So it directly take the early finish as its early start. Add with the duration, you got 14 days as early finish. Okay. Now we look into H pula. H pula, activity H, we put here, it needs D and E predecessors. Okay, and also the duration is 6 days. So D and E. Okay, so which one is for you to take as the early start for H? The maximum among the 2 predecessors, which is 11 days. Reason why? When it's 9 days, the E hasn't finished yet. Then you add with duration, you got the early finish. Okay, so you got the early finish here. Now look into I. I only need F. Okay, so whatever early finish here will be the early start here. Okay, so add with the duration, you got 18. Okay, now we look into J. J need G and H to finish the predecessor. Okay, so here. So, between these two early finish, we'll take the maximum one, which is 17 days as the early start for J. Okay, so plus with 4, you got 21. So, 21 is the longest path, the longest maximum, the maximum time that the project can allow. Okay, so this is what we call critical time. Among these two, okay, once you finish H, I dengan J, because they are not related, okay, which one finish? The longest time is the critical path. Okay, the critical time. So the critical time for the project to finish is 21 days. Okay, 21 days. So if you add this up, it is more than 21 days. So critical time doesn't mean the summation of all the activities. This is what we call, this is what we'll look into the critical path analysis nanti. Okay, so we have a critical time when we do the forward pass process. We've done the forward pass process. Now we look into the the backward pass process pula. Okay, so the backward path process. When we want to do the backward path process, we took the critical time. Okay, in the backward path process, we start with LF to EF. LS. Okay, late finish to late start. Okay, how we do that is that The most late finish is the critical time. We put here. And then late finish minus the duration. Ini bukan plus kan? Ini sebab kita backward. It's minus the duration. You will get the latest start. Okay, paling lewat dia boleh start. Okay, so 21 minus 4, you got 17. Okay, even though it's finished at 18, but we took the critical time, the most critical time untuk the backward punya pass. Okay, so we took 21 minus 6, it's 15. Okay, then 21 minus 6 is 15. Now, untuk proses G dengan H, it will take the direct letter start here. Okay, so 17 minus 5, you dapat 12. 17 minus 6, you dapat 11. Okay, on here, yang feeding F hanya satu, yang feeding I hanya satu, which is F. So, 15 ni terus saja masukkan kat sini. Okay, tolak 4 dapat 11. Okay, dapat 11. Right. Now, H pula, okay, untuk untuk D, dia ada dua yang dia fit. Okay, D fit kepada dua, G dengan H. So, nak pilih yang mana antara G dengan H ni? 12 ke 11 as its latest finish. Okay, untuk backward pass, we choose the minimum. Untuk forward pass tadi, untuk kita choose maximum kan, untuk dia earlier finish kan. Okay, early start kan. Untuk latest finish, kita choose the minimum one. That's why we choose 11 here. And also ini satu je feeding dia, which is H. Now it's 11. Okay, 11 minus 4, it's 7. 11 minus 6 is 5. Okay, here senanglah. 11 dengan 11 je, satu je kan. Right? Okay. 11 minus 4, it's 7. Okay, 11 minus 4, it's 7. Now, untuk A, dia fit kepada D, E dengan C. Okay, macam mana nak pilih the latest finish? The latest finish, untuk backward pass, kita pilih the minimum kan? So, the minimum is 5. So, that's why latest finish is 5. 5 minus 5 is 0. So, you have all notes complete with early start, early finish, latest start, and latest finish. How do you determine the critical path? The critical path yang mana early start, early finish, latest start, latest finish, dia sama. Okay, sama. Contohnya, A. Activity A. Activity E. B sama tak? Tak sama. Okay. 7 dengan 5 tak sama. 11 dengan 9 tak sama. So, ini bukan critical path dia. So, 11 dengan 11 sama. 17 dengan 17 sama. So, early start sama dengan latest start. Early finish sama dengan latest finish. Okay. And also this one. So, our critical path is A, E, H, and J before it's finished. Okay. So, our critical path is A, E, H, and J. And then finish. Okay, this is our critical path. Right? Okay, so we have critical path here. So, we now determine the critical time and also the critical path. Alright. Next. Okay. So, activities on the critical path cannot be delayed because it will cause the entire project to be delayed. Kenapa? The critical path already end at critical time, which is the longest duration can be allowed for project to be finished. Okay. So, what about activities that is not on the critical path? Can it be delayed without causing the delay for the entire project? Yes. So those activity, if you see those activity which is not on the critical path macam D, G, I, F, C, B ni kita boleh delay a bit. Okay. So berapa lama it can be delayed? It has a limit. Bukan lama boleh delay kan. So it has a certain limit that the project starting date ataupun earliest start of the project can be delayed. Okay. So ini kita panggil the duration the project can be delayed, the amount of time the project can be delayed before it is started. It is called float or slack. Okay. So the amount of time before the amount of time the project can be delayed before we start the activities. Let me reword back. The amount of time the activities can be delayed before we start the activities is what we call float or slack. Okay, how do you calculate that? Okay. If you see the critical path, the late finish and early finish sama. Late start and early start sama. Okay. So, for you to calculate on the critical path, slack dengan float dia because of the late finish and early finish, late start and early start tak sama. Critical path ni dia ada zero slack. We call it zero slack or float. Okay. So, how do you calculate the slack and float? Kalau not critical path, late finish tak sama dengan early finish. Late start takkan sama dengan early start. So, in order for that to be calculated, okay, sama dengan slack is the same thing. Is that, okay, late start minus early start sama dengan late finish minus early finish. Okay, late finish minus early finish. Okay, so remember this, Right. So how do we calculate that? Okay, this is the float here, Okay, we start with activity A. 0 minus 0 is 0. 5 minus 5 is 0. So, kita kata float ataupun slack dia sama dengan 0. Now, we look into activity B. 7 minus 0 is 7. 11 minus 4 is 7. The float is 7. Okay. So, activity C. 8 minus 5 is 3. 11 minus 8 is 3. Okay. So, the float is 3. So, it goes on. Okay. So, you can see, you calculate lah. It will be the float. You can see the critical path will have 0 float. Okay. 0 float. 0 float. 0 float. So, the critical path is A, E, H, and J. Besides looking into the similarities of the early start, early finish, early start, late start, early finish, late finish, we can also determine the critical path through the float. Okay, the critical path is for the activity with 0 floats. Okay, activity with 0 floats. Okay, so this one you need to do the exercise on Wednesday. Kita akan buat on Wednesday for class I and on Friday for class H. Please do these activities. Okay. The second tool is what we call as Gantt chart. Okay, maybe you are very familiar with the Gantt chart yang kita selalu buat dalam project FYP kita ke apa. Another things about this Gantt chart, the difference is that we have an arrow to relate one project to another. And we'll see the durations also. Okay, we'll see on the durations also. Okay, so nanti you tengok kat sini apa beza PERT, CPM dengan Gantt chart. Okay. Here we have the activity task A sampai H, for example. And then we also have the predecessor. Okay, predecessor dia. And also the duration of the project. Okay, so it has a start. We have the difference between this Gantt chart and maybe your Gantt chart is that we have an arrow to link one project to another based on its predecessor. Based on its predecessor. Okay. Here another example. Okay, for example, we can see here, drawing, analysis market, and writing spec have to have project approved plan dulu. So, they have to have approved plan dulu here. Okay. This is another example. Okay. So, this is important. Okay, this is important characteristic of our Gantt chart. The bar in each row identify the task. Okay, 1. Okay. The horizontal position of the bar identify the start and end times of the task. Okay. The bar, horizontal bar, daripada sini ke sini. Start and end. Start and end. Start and end. Okay. Bar length represent the duration of the task. Okay. The bar length sama ada green atau black represent the duration of the task. Nanti kita tengok kenapa dia ada green, kenapa dia ada black, kenapa dia because of the float and slack. Okay. Based on this, task duration can be compared easily. Because of this, we can compare. Oh, ada redundant. Ada projek yang start dulu, habis. Ada projek yang redundant. Ada projek tak boleh start kalau another project hasn't finished. Okay. This is very good untuk allocate resources. Okay, untuk allocate resources. Precedence relationship can be represented using arrows. That one I show you just now. Critical activities are usually highlighted. Slack times are represented using bar with dotted lines ataupun different colours. Different colours. Okay. The bar of each activity begins at the activity earliest start time. Ini penting Each bar activity begins on ES. The bar activity ends on LF. Okay. Kalau you tengok ada petak ni tadi kan. Activity, duration, early start, early finish, late start and late finish. The way you draw the bar, di sini adalah early start. This one. End of the bar adalah late finish, which is this one. Okay. Now, these are the advantages and disadvantages of using Gantt chart. Okay. So, how do you gonna construct your Gantt chart? Ada 3 steps. First, okay, the step to construct a Gantt chart from the information that you get must be obtained by PERT and CPM. Okay, so PERT and CPM ni you dah ada table lah. Okay, you dah ada table. Okay, you dah ada table macam ni. Okay, you dah ada table. You ada early start, early finish, latest start, latest finish. You dah ada slack. Okay, whether it's critical path or not. Okay. Based on that, you can start doing your Gantt chart. Okay, you schedule the critical task first in the correct position. And then, place the time window in which the non-critical task can be scheduled. Okay. And then, indicate precedent relationship between the tasks. Only 3 sahaja selepas you dah selesai buat information. Contohnya, this example. Okay, this example kita dah buat PERT and CPM. Okay, you have the duration, you have precedence, you have these 3, and then you do the CPM/PERT. Okay, you get the early start, early finish, latest start, latest finish, and then you calculate the slack ataupun float time. Okay, so and based on this, you can determine your critical path. Okay. And also you can determine your critical time. It seems that critical time is 14 days or weeks. Doesn't determine here. Okay. And then your critical path is B, D, and G. This is your critical path. This is your critical time. Okay. So, because of B, D, and G, kita terus masukkan critical path dulu. Okay. Critical task dulu. B, start at 0, early start, finish at 4, which is the latest finish. Okay. D, start at 4, finish at 11. Okay. G, start at 11, finish at 14. G. Okay, we're done with the critical path first. Okay. Next, we put the non-critical path, which is the A. Okay. A starts 0, finish at 6. Okay. A starts 0, finish at 6. Sorry. Okay, we just put the critical, non-critical task dulu. Okay. C start at 3, finish at 11. 3, finish at 11. Okay. Then E start at 4, finish at 10. Okay, 4, finish at 10. F start at 6, finish at 14. Okay, so this is non-critical task. Now, okay, now we determine the precedent relationship between the task. Okay, now even though A finish at 6, okay, but the precedence A to C, okay, so you see the different colors, this one is the float. Okay, the float. Okay, now D dengan E need B. D and E needs B. Sorry. D and E needs B. Okay, here and here. Okay, D and E needs B. F needs E. Okay, F needs E. Sorry, here. F needs E. Finish of F, starting of E. Okay. Other than here, this is only float. This is only float. Okay. For G, it does need C and D. Okay. C and D. So because of D is the most, the longest, latest finish. So the G start dekat. G basically follow the D. Okay. G basically follow the D. So this is the arrow that relates the precedence and also the task. Okay. So based on this, the light blue is what we call a critical task. Okay. The dark blue is non-critical task. Okay. The white is actually the float. Okay. The white here is actually the float. These are the activities that can be delayed. Okay. Within the time limit. Okay. So, please do this activity during our tutorial nanti dalam kelas You can start off now before your class. Okay. This one too. And finally, this one. Okay. 39, 40, 41. Okay. As the tutorial. Okay. So, thank you very much for your time. Okay.